I'd like to welcome everyone to the Emmaus Borough Council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll have personal appeals. If you have a personal appeal, please sign in, state your name and where you're from, and you have 5 minutes for your appeal.
Good evening, everyone. Karen Pashefko, 719 Glenwood Street. I've been living in the borough for almost 30 years. Thank you all for your service to our community. I was here in March of this year talking about, talking about climate change and sharing my concerns about climate change, and since then my concerns have only grown. There's been a lot going on, as you know. One thing I have to tell you that really frustrates me about this whole issue is that it's such a binary discussion. You know, yes, it's a problem, no, it's not a problem. Left, right, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. I think this is a complex problem that has to be solved by everybody working together. I think it should be nonpartisan. I think people should look at facts and try to analyze what's happening and how we can best address it for everyone concerned. I'd like to just draw your attention to one local or one recent article in the newspaper. There was a defense bill passed in the House of Representatives that does identify climate change as a security threat. That was just in the paper this week. So also happening, and you may have heard this, there have been a lot of communities, states, cities who have come forward and have committed to work to try to reduce their carbon footprint. And among those is our neighbor from Upper Milford, also Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. So I would like to present to council tonight a challenge to commit to talk with our neighbors and just see what they're doing. Talk to them. You know, I really believe that reducing your carbon footprint is really energy conservation. Energy conservation leads to fiscal responsibility, which is, of course, important to all of you. It could result in taxpayer savings, which is, of course, important to all of us. And again, I think that climate change is really a health and safety issue. It's not a political issue. So I would like to ask council tonight to commit to having a conversation with our neighbors, whether that's recommending this issue to one of the committees. I'm not really sure how you would best like to handle it.
What committee would that go to?
Health, sanitation, conservation, and codes.
All right, we'll have the Health and Sanitation and Codes Committee put that on their agenda, see what they can do.
Okay.
Specifically, did you have any, I mean, obviously you mentioned Upper Milford, but did you have any specific communities that, I mean, Upper Milford was one of them, but were there others that you?
Well, also Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton.
Mm-hmm.
And Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton have actually taken further steps. They're actually endorsing a carbon fee and dividend program, which, if you're interested, I can talk to you about that at some point in the future. I put 2 calls into Allentown to find out specifically what they're doing, and I didn't hear back. So maybe if one of you call, maybe you'll get more traction than I did.
You think we have pull, huh?
You have more pull than me. And, you know, really, we may be doing things that they're not doing. I mean, our recycling program, for example, is fabulous. It's so easy. So we may be ahead of them, and we may be able to share some things that we're doing with them. Again, I think we all have to work together.
Thank you.
I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Are there any other public appeals?
I'm Richard Musselman. I reside at 945 Franklin Street in Emmaus. I've been a resident of Emmaus since 1986. I'd like to speak to the same subject that Karen did, and I'm going to present the chairman with a paper here, but first let me highlight what I have here. And my paper is entitled 6 Irrefutable Pieces of Evidence That Proves That Climate Change is Real. Number 1, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and that's measured in parts per million. Number 2, droughts, and that's measured in D0 to D4. Now, we haven't had a drought here in Pennsylvania, a severe one, but I experienced one, actually twice, on my visits to California in 2016. And there was no washing of cars at your own place. Number 3, global mean sea level, that's measured in millimeters. Number 4 in temperature, both degrees Celsius and degrees Fahrenheit. Number 5, sea surface temperature measured in degrees Celsius. And lastly, Arctic and Antarctic sea ice extent. Now, my printer did not pick up the websites in blue, but if you would put the lead sentence on your browser, you can.
Thank you.
One more thing. We can see climate change if the pilot of our flights to Europe, and particularly to Norway or Sweden, would tell us to peer out the window as we pass over Greenland, and they all do. We would see, if we had flown over there years ago, if we had a great memory, we could see the difference. I flew over in 1970, and I saw Greenland, and I flew over last time in 2015, and I knew there was a lot less. So I'll give this to you also. I was telling Wes that my grandchildren and his grandchildren, their grandchildren, could plan on seaside vacations in Greenland because it's going to be that warm. Thank you for your concern and your time.
Thank you.
One more thing, I heard you people did. I was at the concert last night, it was fantastic. I was also at the car show, and that was also good. Number 1 was a car from Emmaus, a 1936 Buick.
Nice.
Beautiful automobile. And the one that I found most interesting was a 4-wheeled Vespa. I'd never seen one before.
Glad you enjoyed the event. Thank you for coming out to it.
Oh, yes. Good crowd, too.
I'm not sure if there's a sign-in sheet here or not. My name is John Boyle. I live at
There should be
4848.
there should be one on the podium.
Did it fall down?
No.
Somebody's got it. I have it.
All right. I swear I'll sign in, okay?
What's your name again, sir?
John Boyle, 4848 Canterbury Drive, Emmaus. I've lived here since 1987. I'm a consultant in the area of alternative energy and alternative fuels. And just to give you an idea, some of my clients include Walmart, BMW, Coca-Cola. One of the things that they're doing is they're converting to different fuels, different power sources. And the reason for it is cost reduction. Their goal is to reduce their energy and costs by 25 to 40% per year. These are corporate 500 companies. They're looking for bottom line results. They're looking for a payback of 2 years or thereabouts. And I'm urging the borough to consider doing what they're doing. converting your energy sources, looking for alternative energy for cost reduction. All right, that means tax reduction, cost reduction, or alternatively, you have more money to spend in other ways. The other thing I would urge you to do is there are new technologies emerging that could be very beneficial to the borough from a jobs perspective. There are new technologies, photovoltaic, the technology for shingling, for roof construction, that I know that there are people here in our area that are looking at that technology. They're going to need production facilities for those technologies. So I would urge you to begin to reach out to those companies, to those entities, to bring them, into Emmaus and bring jobs, into our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public appeals?
Hi, my name is John Zagora. I reside at 4946 Jasper Road. It's not in the borough. I am the president of the Youth Association in Emmaus, and I have a little bit of a complaint about the fuel juice down at Community Park. The past 2 times that we have gone down there after a rainstorm, the adult league, which is the Dodgers who play there, have pretty much destroyed the field both times, pushing all kinds of fill and dirt inside the fields. And it takes my coaches hours to fix this field, to get it back up to playing. As you all know, volunteers are hard to come by. And this problem that we're having is becoming more and more of a problem. I don't know if they're, after the rainstorms, if they're let known that they're not supposed to be on the fields. I don't know who's supposed to be taking care of that. That's way out of my purview. That's the borough, since it's your field. But the biggest problem is I have pictures. I just want to kind of show you. The first storm was on 6/26, was when we went down to have we had a game on Sunday, and that's what we came into. And this one was just on Saturday when they Friday night's rain. They came into play on Saturday.
Absolutely not.
We're not. We understand that the income coming in is something to help pay for some of the bills, and I understand. But $40 for a field for them to come in and destroy it and walk away and not do anything, and then it costs us more money as a youth organization to prepare the field for a game, is just a little bit. There's a problem, and I don't know what the problem is, but I don't know if it's somebody on your part to be able to contact them, let them know that the field isn't available for play, or what it is. But it's becoming a problem to my volunteer coaches. That's where I'm here for.
Well, thank you, John. I'm going to send that to Parks and Recreation Committee, and they will address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other appeals? Hearing none, does anybody have a community minute to bring forward? Special presentations. I would like to call up Chief Hoffman and Debbie Mailer for, or Kaler, I'm sorry. When I typed it in, I put an M, but I know it's Kaler, from representing the Emmaus Women's Club.
I am Chief Hoffman with the Emmaus Ambulance, and this is Debbie Kaler from the Emmaus Women's Club. I just wanted to take a brief moment to thank Debbie and the Women's Club from Emmaus for the recent donation. Debbie called me several weeks ago and said that they had some excess funds at the end of their fiscal year, and they're looking for a project to donate to. So through that, they did donate $150, and we were able to get a case of safety glasses. So we've distributed these safety glasses to most of our EMTs and paramedics already, and we just wanted to find a project that kind of went along with. I know with safety committee in the borough, we've really been putting an increased emphasis on employee safety, so I thought that would be a great project. And the other reason I just wanted to say how important it is that we stay connected with the community organizations. I know several of the organizations have helped the fire and the ambulance and the police over the years, and myself personally, we really appreciate that. So, just wanted to say thank you. Debbie?
I also would like to thank the Emmaus Women's Club, one of our service organizations here in the borough, and all our service organizations are very community-oriented, and they're always doing things for the borough and to make the borough better. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And I did, sitting there, I asked Debbie, they have 41 members, is that correct? And you meet at the
John Wilson Church, fifth and Chestnut.
so, I thought that was great. All right, thank you.
Reading of minutes. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the council meeting minutes of June 19, 2017? Councilman Dufresne, second by Councilwoman Gilbert. Any questions or discussions or corrections on the minutes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There's 7 ayes. Decisions on bids. We have Fire Department billing services bid results, and I will turn it over to Shane.
So, as we passed the new fire ordinance and the fire inspection ordinance last year, one of the things that was included in that ordinance was the right to bill insurance companies for certain activities and costs obtained by our fire department. For example, broken equipment, hoses. There was a list of things that we had included, and we also included it in our fee schedule, and the fee schedule memorandum. One of the things that we said at that point, though, was we were probably going to do an RFP for a fire billing service because they're more successful, as most insurance companies tell municipalities and fire departments to essentially take their bill and shove it. However, these companies that do this for a profession are extremely successful. So we did try it on our own and had exactly 0 success in billing some of these companies. So we've decided to go out for bid for those services. And a company, which, by the way, most of the fire departments that do bill, this is the company that they end up using because these guys, this is what they do. The company called PA Fire Recovery Service LLC put in a bid with their qualifications and their price list. And actually what they did with their price list was they essentially went and looked at our resolution, our fee schedule. It matches. So that's essentially what they said would be the price. Now, my recommendation is to enter into an agreement with PA Fire Recovery Service LLC for fire department billing services.
Thank you, Shane. Would somebody like to make the motion? Councilwoman Gilbert, is there a second? Councilman Barrett, any questions or discussion?
It's removed.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. Moving on to communications, we got a thank you letter from Richard Farmer for, we picked him for Volunteer of the Year, and he was very appreciative of it, and in his letter gave a little more history of the borough, which was nice. We received a letter from Justin Stoffer. He's a part-time EMT. He's requesting a job status to volunteer with the Emmaus Ambulance Corps. Angie Wilson is a part-time EMT, sent a letter of resignation in from the Emmaus Ambulance Corps. And then Kathy Mincer from the Emmaus Halloween Committee / Halloween Parade request. We will send that to the CRD committee, so you can address that at next meeting. Does anyone else have any other communications? There's no borough engineers report. Solicitors report.
I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Unfinished business part 1, we have none. New business, we have ordinance number 1156, an ordinance amending the provisions of Chapter 1, Part 1, subsection 1 through 103, Borough Manager of the Emmaus, or of the Borough of Emmaus Consolidated Code of Ordinances. And this is the first reading, and second reading will be in August,
Yeah.
our meeting in August. Would somebody like to make a motion to pass ordinance 1156? Councilman Barrett, is there a second? Councilman Anders, any questions or discussion? Hearing none, is a roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Schipsta?
Aye.
Councilman Anders?
Aye.
Councilman Barrett?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? Aye. There are 7 ayes. We also have ordinance 1157, an ordinance amending Chapter 15 subsection 403 and Chapter 15 subsection 404.1 of the codified ordinances addressing vehicle, bus, and drop-off and pickup parking issues on East Minor Street. This is also a first reading, and we will have our second reading in August also. Would somebody like to make a motion? Well, first of all, Councilwoman Gilbert, do you have any comments on this before we put the motion out?
Hopefully, this corrects our bus parking issue at 7 Generations. What is happening is we're deleting the student drop-off area, and from Cherry Street, 677 feet east will be bus parking only. I believe Chief Palmer will be sending a letter to the school asking them that the student drop-off zone will be in the parking lot. Is that correct, Mr. Pepe?
Yeah, so the school, what do they call him? The principal, the president, I'm not sure what the charter
Yeah.
school, we had spoken about this ahead of time, and he had agreed that it would definitely ease traffic if they had somewhere else to drop their students off, and their parking lot was definitely a spot where he thought was a better location, and hopefully would ease some of that congestion in that area. So initial reaction that we know of, based on Paul Hunter's response to me, was more positive than what the current setup is.
Okay, thank you. So would somebody like to make the motion 1157?
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Gilbert. Is there a second? Councilman Brown? Any questions or discussion? This is also a roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Schubsta?
Aye.
Councilman Anders?
Aye.
Councilman Barrett?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? Aye. There are 7 ayes. Unfinished business part 2, we have none. Items not on the agenda. Does anybody have anything to bring forward? Mayor's report.
I don't have anything, but I can say how nice the park went last night. Everything was good. As far as I know, there were no problems, and it was good for the community. So, got to keep that going.
Great.
That's it, progress.
Thank you. Committee reports. Public Works Chairman Brown.
Nothing for official action tonight. No status changes, unless Mr. Pepe, is there a status change on the culvert? No.
No.
So nothing for report. So I'll report progress. Our next meeting is August 14th here in Council Chambers at 3 p.m. Progress.
Thank you. Health, Sanitation, and Codes Committee, Chairman Schubsta.
Nothing for official action this evening. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 20th at 4:15 in Council Chambers. I report progress.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Committee, Chairman Anders.
Yes, I have one item on the agenda for official action, and that is the hiring of concession stand attendants at Community Pool. The first is Nicholas Blos of Emmaus at $7.25 per hour, and the second is Danielle Potts of Emmaus at $7.25 per hour.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilwoman Gilbert, any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
Our next meeting is August 1st at 4 p.m. Progress.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Chairwoman Gilbert.
Before I give my report, Mr. President, I'd like to request an executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
We can do that.
Do it now, or can we do it?
We can do that at the end.
When we do our-
but we will need official action after that.
Okay, and I'll announce it as such.
Yeah.
Okay.
On your laptop, you will find a recommendation memo from Mr. Pepe dealing with the hiring of an EMT by the name of Justin Hammond. Mr. Hammond was a part-time paid EMT, and based on the interviews, he's being recommended as an EMT at a salary of $13.97, and I'll place that in the form of a motion.
So motion on the floor by Councilwoman Gilbert. Is there a second? Councilman Barrett, questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
We took care of the parking issue on East Minor Street. Also, you have a memo. Do you want me to discuss that now, Mr. Dimick? In reference
Which
to
one? The one that?
In reference to the 3 of them.
Let's talk about an executive
You
session.
want to wait? Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 2nd at 3 p.m. I'll report progress.
Thank you. General Administration Committee, Chairman Barrett.
There are 2 items that require official action. The first is townhouses at South Mountain.
They're in the building.
Do we want to bring up?
I see Bill Wall here. Well, I saw Bill Wall here somewhere. He might be sleeping by now.
He's hiding back there.
He's hiding back there.
So I know that he and his partners are here. I think they're going to present to council. a little
Perfect.
bit.
So should we call them up to do that? If you guys want to come up and present, that would be fantastic. The paperwork that we have in our binder, is it any different than what you're going to give us, or?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't know what happens about it.
Everyone, you have a little map on your table
map right
that they're going to discuss.
I have a little different version of that, maybe that would be helpful.
Sure.
Easier to read some of the fine print.
There's fine.
Thank you.
This is the gentleman we spoke with here.
Oh, thank you.
I can read this.
President Labenberg, I've got to give you kudos on keeping this meeting moving. I like that.
Thanks. Kind of like your moves in EYA basketball back in the day, huh?
You go build it.
We were teammates.
Oh, yeah? Okay. All right, so if you guys want to just tell us about your project?
Sure. For those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name's Tom Walsh. I think you know Billy Wall, if you don't. Certainly been involved in Emmaus and Valley Builders. Just a little history. We're a partnership. Billy and I, my wife Deb, and Joe and Deb Buba. The name of the company is W2V2. Certainly Billy has experience in building in Emmaus, but also the Bubas and my wife and I do also. We built 2 townhomes on Furnace Street a few years back, and we just did a 3-lot subdivision on 15th Street over the last couple of years. This project is a just under 10-acre lot, a parcel at the ends of Tillman and Arch Street. It's currently owned by Rodale, but it's under agreement of sale for us to purchase. Settlement date is set for August 10th. Right now it is zoned residential medium and conservation residential. And you can see the percentages there on the sheet. 3/4 of it is residential medium, roughly 1/4 of it is conservation residential. Our intent is to develop, build, and sell residential homes on the property. It is critical for us to make this make sense from a financial standpoint, to build in the CR area. The way it is currently set up to be used is that we could build single-family homes in that area, and it looks like we could fit 4 on there through flag lots. And then we would build, by right of use, we could build twins in the RM area, but we're actually going to ask for a special exception to do townhomes there. But as we went through some discussions with the General Administrative Committee as well as the zoning officer, we started to realize that there may be some positives to, instead of just building the single-family homes in the CR area, potentially look at maybe amending the zoning map with a slight adjustment to the CR boundary. So if you look on your plans there, there are two heavy red dotted lines. One of them goes east, as you're looking at your plan, you're sitting south, looking north. One of them goes east to west and actually cuts through our proposed extension of Tillman Street. That's the existing CR boundary as it stands now. What we're asking is looking to adjust that down to the south, which is the smaller red dotted line. And what that will allow us to do are two really major points that I think will help us as well as the borough. If we would build the single-family homes in the CR area, essentially the CR area would go away. It would then be owned by 4 different homeowners. By adjusting this line, it will allow us to get away from building the single-family homes and build townhomes or twins up into the mountain area. But what we'll do is take the remaining CR area that's left there and through deed restrictions, make sure that nobody can build on that. So our initial plan would have left us, or what we would have provided back to the borough would have been the minimum requirement of 1,100 square feet per unit. Roughly, it would have been about an acre, 40,000 square feet. Through this plan, any of the green area other than the stormwater infiltration areas would be open space or recreation space, and it totals 2.5 acres. So it's actually 2.5 times the open area or green space as compared to our initial plan. Our request is to allow us to move forward with potentially amending the zoning map by moving the CR boundary, and also a special exception for townhomes as opposed to twins in the remaining RM areas.
Okay.
We have no special exception.
So we're just making a motion to amend the map.
Yeah, so the special exemption they'd have to apply through the zoning hearing board for a special exemption. As far as a map amendment, that is purely a decision of Borough Council.
So it's clear, a map amendment is a legislative change, and it requires, it's very technical. It has to be posted, you have to have public hearings, has to go through full compliance to the MPC. And obviously, we draft the necessary ordinance, and then we'd come to committee, review that, and if everyone's happy with it, fine. I think what they're really asking tonight is, do you have any objection to them proceeding in this manner?
And I would ask that the vote from you would be to begin the process. If you vote, if this is something that you want to do, your vote would be to begin the process.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily approve it tonight, but.
So amend the map and approve the process.
Well, to approve the process to do a zoning map amendment. So that way we can get started on the process. You're still going to have to go through public hearings and a public vote and an advertisement and I mean, there's a whole big process you have to go through. But what they're asking for is so that they can close on their property. I mean, obviously it's still based on assumptions and things like that on their behalf, but they're looking for if we're willing to do that, that gives them their reassurances that they're asking for. At least that's how I understand the Gen Ad meeting. I mean, I may misinterpret, but
And
that's
that was
how
what I was
understood
gonna sum up as saying.
Just so it's clear, this vote is not binding, because you can't you have to have public input and everything else. All this is really a motion to authorize the necessary people to proceed with the zoning map amendment.
So I'll make that motion, and simply before I state that, for the record, this was talked about twice at the Gen Ad meeting, and kind of all the questions that seemed to be the obvious ones that you'd asked did go through, and then the fact that we're going to gain some more green space, I think, was the overlying positive there. But I will make a motion to begin the zoning map amendment process with the assumption that the developer will be bearing all the costs for that.
There's a motion on the floor by Councilman Barrett. Is there a second? Councilwoman Gilbert, any questions or discussion? Councilman
So
Dufresne.
it goes to zoning hearing first, correct?
No.
So,
No. the zoning map amendment it would allow them to build houses in an area where right now it's conservation district and they couldn't do it. The zoning hearing is the type of house that they can build. That's what they need to go to the zoning hearing board. They want to build twins, right, or townhouses. And the ordinance right now allows for.
Twins in the RM, single family in the CR.
Right. So that's what they'd have to get the zoning hearing board to
So
approve.
ours would be first then, rather than.
Well, actually, they can. Yeah, I guess. I mean.
We'll leave that to
Yeah,
their
we'll
discretion.
let the zoning officer decide that.
But as a practical matter, they need two specific distinct things, because these are not twins. These are, I don't believe they're twins, right? They're townhomes.
Yeah, the proposed plan is for townhomes.
Okay.
We're asking for the special
And,
exception for that.
and I'd have to look at the RM zone to see, does it say that they can be approved by special exception?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a special exception is a permitted use as long as you meet the objective criteria that is set forth in the zoning hearing, in the zoning act, and that is determined by the zoning hearing board. If I were them, I would probably wait for this to be taken care of and then proceed, but it's up to them to decide how they wish to do it. Because they could go ahead and do that and we may not approve the map amendment.
A clarification, I think, with the map amendment, by adjusting the boundary of the CR, between the CR and the RM, we would not be building then in any of the CR area. So really, we'd only be building in the RM, and then we would need the special exception of
Right.
the town.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I probably would, but the logical thing is to get the map amendment and then go. Right.
And the map amendment will take several months. I mean, there's a whole. It's a lengthy process.
All right, so, because this is my first time through one of these, so if we give the approval tonight, which I don't have a problem with myself, the zoning hearing, there's really nothing for them to stop. I'd hate to say yes, and then they go through with the sale, and then it can
The
be stopped.
zoning hearing board is not bound by anything we do.
Okay. I'm good.
If they feel that it would be and they're not meeting their criteria of the zoning ordinance, they may turn them down.
So there's only one of the two yes processes that they have to go through.
And this isn't
Okay,
even
I
a
got
yes
it.
process, this is a begin of the
Begin, I
yes
understand,
process.
I understand, right. Okay.
But we are comfortable acquiring the land, even if none of this is approved, by building the 4 single-family homes in the CR
Okay.
and twins in the RM.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
No, I'm abstaining.
Oh, 1 abstention. So 6 ayes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was.
Yeah, right.
All right, we have one other item that requires official action, and that is, if you read your notes, there was if you remember from our budget season, we purchased a power lift for the ambulance. The new ambulance is slightly different sized, and there's a better version that we can purchase. So I'll make the motion to purchase the Stryker Power Stretcher.
At a cost of?
Was it 20,000? Sorry, I had it written down here. Shane, what is the? Oh, is it before this?
No, we had budgeted money and then they had gotten a grant. So we're funding the balance out of the contingency account.
I believe it's $38,399.
Right.
It is, okay.
Of
Okay.
which there's a FEMA grant for $17,728. And we have a capital budget of $13,035 to fund it. There's a difference of $12,600 that we would need to fund out of
Contingency fund.
contingency.
Do you want that as part of the?
Absolutely, with the provision that if there's a settlement, there's some settlement money on an estate, that money would be paid out of at a later date.
It would be repaid back to contingency fund. Okay. So you're so amended to what he just said?
I have.
It's easier than restating it.
It is easier than restating that one.
All right. So there's a motion on the floor.
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman Gilbert. Any questions or discussion? Councilman Anders.
Just on the possible settlement, is there any sort of time frame? I mean, I realize we're,
No, we have all we know is we're going to be a recipient of, or we're supposed to be a recipient of a fairly large amount of money from this estate. That's all we can tell you. We're not involved, like, we're not sitting there at the lawyer's table saying, where's our money?
correct.
We've just been notified by their attorney that when the estate settles, we should be getting a large chunk of money.
And that absolutely can be used for this.
It's in particular for that department.
It is, okay.
Yes.
That's what I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I clarify, since we are taking from a contingency.
Yeah, it's actually, like, the estate is actually donated squarely to that
To
department.
the ambulance. Okay, then I'm comfortable, thank you.
Normally, you would see this would occur within 9 months from the date of death, maybe up to a year. I have seen it go longer because it's a charitable bequest. The Attorney General has to be notified, and will also be representing our interest to make sure that the provisions of the will concerning the charitable interest is carried out.
Okay, thank you.
So if it could be up to a year, you've got 9 months
Right.
left to wait.
I see.
Up to another 9 months.
Possible, yeah.
Possible, okay.
Councilman Brown?
So the one that we're replacing, is that going to go into another truck?
Yes.
Then, and then is that truck going to get outfitted?
Yeah,
for
so,
the-
and that's
so
part
we'll
of
have
the, that's
two.
part of the 12,000, like, that's part of the cost estimate is the cost
was,
to,
okay, I didn't
retrofit.
understand.
So the problem was, when they spec'd out this truck, they didn't realize that this truck is actually like 4 to 6 inches taller than our current truck. So when they spec'd out the power stretcher, what they didn't realize was that they actually have to lift higher than what they normally would, and it's caused a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that power stretcher, put it in one of our other trucks, put the new power stretcher that comes up to the height it's supposed to, and put it in the new truck.
And at the end of the day, if you remember this, I mean, the goal was to have these stretchers. Initially, it was a budget issue that we weren't sure we could make happen, so we're kind of just expediting that process.
To do that with a new truck, this other power stretcher costs more than what was initially thought. That's why we're here today saying there's a $12,000 difference, because it's a different brand as well.
Well, and that will also save the backs of the ambulance personnel, or
Well, absolutely.
possible injury.
Absolutely.
Possible injury, so it's a good thing to do, but I just wanted the clarification, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
We have no other items for official action, but if you did take a look of the many things to do on the Gen Ed committee, there's plenty. We will stay busy for a while. Progress.
Thank you. Budget and Finance Committee is myself. We have the bill list. Would somebody like to make the motion for Resolution 2017-22? Councilwoman Gilbert, is there a second? Councilman Shribsta. Any questions or discussion on the bill list? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. Our next meeting is July 27th here in council chambers at 3:15. I report progress. Community Relations Planning and Development Committee, Chairman Dufresne.
Nothing for official action, so just report progress, and our next meeting is August 10th at 4 PM in council chambers.
Thank you. Under agenda number 17, you have your boards and commissions. There's 3 different meeting minutes. It's very informative if you get a chance to read that. Personal Appeals Part 2. Does anybody have an appeal?
Hi, my name's Erin McLean. I'm new to the Borough Council meeting.
Please sign in then.
Don't have paper. I will sign in.
Can
I
you just
live
spell
at-
out your name for me, please?
It's MC, capital L, A-N-E. First
And-
name's Erin, E-R-I-N. And I live at 32 North 4th Street. I've been here for 3 years. Prior to this, I lived in Portland, Oregon, and things are very different in Portland. They have a lot of different laws, and I think because it's just a huge city, people get tickets all the time, and things are very strict. And living here, it's been kind of a challenge because I'm right off the triangle, so there's a lot of rentals right here. And in Portland, you can only have so many rentals per actual homeownership. So when people were to buy properties to rent out, they were forced into a certain area that we were maxed for rentals. And because we don't have that here, the property values, you know, you have some people taking really good care of their properties, and then like, for example, 2 doors down from my house, there's literally a couch on the porch. There's trash that I'm out there every week sweeping up. I actually wrote a letter to someone in the borough as well as the mayor. No one ever wrote back to me. It was about 6 months to a year ago.
Yeah, I don't remember anything.
I never got a letter.
Yeah, I ended up approaching these renters on my own because, I mean, it was quite literally like huge pieces of trash, coffee cups, bottles, McDonald's wrappers, and I finally just said, you know, I've been out here sweeping every week for the past 2 years, and if you could do anything about it. Unfortunately, these people didn't really speak English. Turns out the house is owned by Joe's Pizza, so I thought about going down to Joe's Pizza and asking them about it, but I don't know, I feel like something should be done because this affects everyone's property values, and you know, we have such a good school district that brings people to purchase homes in Emmaus, but yet,
We'll have our zoning officer address it.
yeah. I mean, there's a couple people that own their properties on my little street. Like, you can literally see my house from the triangle, and I think they just kind of live with it the way it is, but I'm trying to actually boost my property value. I dumped a lot of money into the curb appeal, and it's just really frustrating to just have blatant trash, garbage cans, and I think it also is compounded by the fact that our trash pickup people will just be very careless when they're putting stuff in the back and stuff below. And I understand it's windy days, but that is also compounding an issue. So I'm not really sure what the solution is. I honestly have actually thought about selling my house because, you know, I want to live in a place that's clean and nice and not have people come visit me and they're getting out of their car door and stepping on a wrapper. So I don't know what can be done about it, but thought I would just come to the meeting. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have issues with our trash, you
Yeah.
can call the office. We do have a person who does take complaints for
Okay.
trash issues.
Well, same thing with the same issues
Right.
that she's talking about. We have a codes department that would take that complaint. And that's who we're going to refer this to as our codes officer.
Codes
But if
officer.
you call in the town hall and you can speak to him directly and see what the status is, and he can go down there and deal with it.
Is there anybody kind of monitoring the people who own all these rentals? Like, I only know that Joe's Pizza owns
I'll be
this
very
rental.
honest with you.
Yeah,
In the large scale in this town,
Sure.
rentals are not that big of a problem. And I
Okay.
think everybody here at council can speak to that. So on the large scale,
Mhm.
we don't have a rental issue that you may see in some other communities, because we do pay very close attention to it.
okay,
All right, but it's not something where it's a large scale issue. I mean, the issue that you talk about, if you drive around town, you're not gonna see, 40% of our houses have couches in their front porch.
Right.
That's not a borough-wide issue. I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
about, there are some isolated ones, and there's no doubt, I mean, every town has them, but
Right.
as far as a borough-wide rental issue, it really in this community, and we're lucky to be able to say that, because I've worked in a community where it was a very large issue, like it was like at the top of our problems.
right,
But in this community, it's not as high of a problem as some other communities. So I think on the large scale, it's not as big of an issue.
Yeah.
But we do pay attention, we do watch it, we know where the rentals are. But to group them all together as like we have a rental problem in the borough of Emmaus, that's not the case. And one of the reasons is because our rental cost to rent a house in this borough
is expensive.
is expensive.
Right.
So you don't have row homes of slums. Every house, I mean, even our property owners, our people that own their own home, they have just as many issues as the people that rent, at least in our community.
The code officer will look at your problem and see if it is,
Okay.
if it's there, and it'll be remedied.
Yeah, that would be helpful. It'd be nice to not look at trash every day.
Well, other than your neighbor, I hope you're enjoying the community
I
from,
am. I love living in downtown Emmaus here. I go to the farmer's market every Sunday, and I work at St. Luke's Bethel. I'm one of the nurses, so it's really convenient to work. And my family, they live by Bear Creek Ski Resort, so yeah.
Very nice
I
area.
like the area a lot, and I would actually like to keep getting more involved, so
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other personal appeals?
can't sign it. Jay Jesman, live at 915 Chestnut.
I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Jay Jesman. Lived in Emmaus since '94. I'm currently actually volunteering on the Recreation and Entertainment Commission, as well as the Emmaus Fire Department. Basically, I take a lot of pride in my town, kind of going off what she said. So I've been spending a lot more time since I've been helping out down at the community park. We got pool passes so my kids can go down there and swim, and some of the issues that I'm seeing are out-of-city people coming in, kind of just trashing the place. There's a lot of vulgarity. The parents don't watch their kids. I understand it happens even within town people. But the majority of the issues that I see are from people with, like, Jersey plates on their car and people coming from Allentown. And maybe I'm on a small biased section of people I talk to, but they don't want to come to the park anymore because of this. And there's a lot of that stuff that kind of deters Emmaus residents from going to the pool. And I thought it was, for the Emmaus community. And I understand it's probably going to be a revenue generator charging higher, but at what cost are we, putting out against our own people of Emmaus?
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't control who goes to your pool, so. But the regulations can be enforced.
Right,
So-
because, the lifeguards are young. The parents go there. There is a language barrier. Sometimes the lifeguards are yelling at them. The parents don't even care anyway. I think the enforcement behind the lifeguards or a little more supervision on their part would probably help things.
I've been to the pool a couple times this year, and our person that runs it has done a great job down there. And I know we have the park police there as well, and if there is an issue, she does alert them right away, and it takes care of it. Is the pool fuller, probably? Is it an
Well,
income
absolutely,
generator?
absolutely, it's
Right.
fuller. Mr. Jesman, we don't disagree with your position.
Right.
The word public is the key to the whole thing, though. We can't stop people from Allentown or out of town. We put a regulation on 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and made it an extremely high price. The first word that came out of people's mouth was discrimination. We lost about $40,000 that year on the pool, and it was completely empty. The people that went were much happier. We get that. One of the things that is making it crowded right now is the fact that Cedar Beach has been closed for 2 years. Our revenue has jumped through the roof, but our use of chemicals has jumped through the roof. The amount of trash generated at the park has jumped through the roof. But crime hasn't increased. The number of incidents haven't increased. We have had pool issues where kids can't swim, and there's a language barrier because, grandma doesn't understand. She's sitting up on the hill while her 2-year-old's face down in the pool. We've had that. That was an issue last year. We have had issues, and council's aware of that. Addressing how to deal with that in a fair way has been really the conversation, and not just saying we don't want them here, but also looking at it from the other perspective is maybe we're not as accommodating as we're supposed to be. Maybe that's the issue, and that's not a popular stance, but that's something that we need to have discussions about. Are there things that we can do to help them understand, the language barrier, or things that we can do to help them understand what the rules are, what they should be doing in the park. We get your point, but there's both sides of that we have to, because we do have to keep in mind that it's public, which means the public, doesn't matter if they're from Emmaus or from New Jersey, it's a public pool. And we're bound by the law to allow the public into that pool.
No, I could just, on both of these issues, and I think everyone hears them and they instantly perk up and pay attention, because over the last however many years, I think we've been very proactive on both of these issues. Renters was used, but really, we're talking more about trash and unsightliness within our town, in the streets, in the neighborhoods, but then also within the pool. But all of that has to be done within the rights of the law, what we're allowed to do, but also within the means of a small borough. It is limited the number of employees that we have. It is limited the number of funds that we have to take on some of these things. So it's slow progress, but I think if you look at things collectively, there is very steady, progressive progress on this. So it might feel like it as you go down there, but I think if you look back over time, we've been nipping the little issues one thing at a time, and that's really the best way to do it. It doesn't ruffle feathers of too many people, but it, at the same time, can feel a little bit slow too.
No, I understand revenue plays a part in all of it, about the borough making money to maintain and stuff like that.
But that's not the key issue. That's not the key issue. It's what's equitable and fair are also, like, we have to be very careful of laws that we pass or policies that we pass. We've got to make sure that they're equitable to everybody, and everybody has a fair chance. We're governed by that. You know, what we have personal beliefs about, unfortunately, when it comes to things like a public pool or a public park, our personal beliefs sometimes have to be set aside because we're governed by these by these rules. And our solicitor speaks to that all the time to us, and I'm sure he'll attest to that right now. And that's the challenge, because we get it. It's not always about money, although we've made that change and lost $40,000 faster than you can blink an eye. And when you're on a limited budget, doing that because we decided to raise the price by $7 for out-of-town residents, that was a very big strategic error on our part, and we learned a lesson, because the pool wasn't just the out-of-towners that were mad. People in town were mad because their friends and their family from out of town wouldn't come to the pool and enjoy it with them because the price was too high.
But if you did see something blatant, definitely direct it to the pool manager. I know she's down there. She personally walks that pool many times during the day. I mean, she's out and she talks to everybody. And the park police, I know, are in there and will address things as well. But pull them aside. If you see something, let them take care of it, and I'm sure they will.
I just want to say that the people of Emmaus, there's a lot of people that make assumptions, and you cannot assume that they're from out of town. Emmaus is becoming a very diverse community, which is a good thing. And many of those families that you may be referring as out-of-towners are right from our borough. It's just part of our community now. We're a diverse community, and you cannot make that assumption anymore. Now, you say you see the license plates. I mean, that's proof that some of them are out of town, but many of them are families right here in the borough, so we can't make those assumptions.
The issue is exactly like the manager had described. There's legal rights of people, and I would not allow council to infringe on those rights and jeopardize the financial well-being of the borough because of litigation. So that's my job. What you're really talking about is enforcement and just general manners. And I think you have the people down there to do it. So if you have a complaint, you should see the person in charge, and they should address it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Usually public appeals 5 minutes. We had a lot to say up here on our end, but
But we do appreciate
it's an important discussion, and this comes up from time to time, and we try to address it. We try to make it as family oriented as possible, but you can't control everything, but we try to. We try to accommodate the families, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public appeals?
Karen, excuse me, Karen Pashevko again. Can I just ask a question about the development, the townhouses? Was that Arch and, what was the location?
Tillman, which is at the top of.
Well, the road isn't there now, but it would extend into the development, correct?
No, Tillman exists.
No, it's there.
It's already there. Is it 12? Is it 12?
It's Arch and Tillman.
Yeah.
12 cent, right?
Go past,
Oh,
if you go
12.
past,
Past the Stevenson School,
Yeah,
and then make
Make
a
a
left
left.
onto DeLong, then make a right.
I know.
just keep going all the way up.
So I don't want to get into a long discussion, but my only question is adjusting the CR. I mean, isn't CR designated based on the land issues, steep slopes, wetlands, whatever?
If you could see the map, it's just reversing where it is. So
All right.
the green space will be between the development and where
Arch Street.
Arch Street development is. So there'll be green space buffer there versus being up where the end of the woods are. So more people will be able to enjoy the green
Well,
space.
in the back
And a
of the
buffer.
property, one of the things I don't think we talked a whole lot about was the walking trail areas.
And there's going to be a walking trail around the
Okay.
whole development.
So I guess my question is, there's nothing in the old CR that would be jeopardized by moving the CR to another location?
No.
We're just
So-
flip-flopping it.
So their property line will go up to, I mean, it goes up to the railroad tracks and then it's woods above there.
Okay.
So there's really not, I mean, they have the right to build, but did he say single family anyway? They're just
Alright.
looking at trying to,
I just have a concern about building on the mountain in general, but, you know, if it's zoned, it's zoned, so.
Well, you'll have your opportunity to give input at a public hearing.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
follow that, thank you.
And I think in most of these cases, I mean, usually that does throw up a red flag. Anytime you hear that something's going to change, I find this situation to be unique. Also, what wasn't mentioned there is that abuts directly to the railroad tracks.
Okay.
That's, if you're trying to get perspective, the second set of railroad
All
tracks in
right,
town.
I'll check it out, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other appeals? Hearing none. Borough Manager's report.
it's been an interesting first day back.
He was on vacation last week.
So